locating at 2.6.
No, Stephen said it's now 2.6. It's not on this, it's
Oh.
not on this sheet.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. It looks to me, if our spending and, you know, if this 188,000 a month is, you know, reasonably close, that we should comfortably be able to invest more than $1 million. You know, the rule of thumb that at least they're using for count 001, that the board is 250,000 a month, or about 750,000. It appears to me that we could, particularly if we laddered them, could invest more than $1 million, because at no point in Stephen's cash flow here do we have any less than, you know, the lowest number is $1,146,000.
I agree.
And
Make some money with them.
yeah, it seems to me that, you know, we ought to be thinking about perhaps doing a little bit more.
I think I'll defer most of my comments to Stephen, but don't forget that second page, we already have 1.9 million. We will have 1.9 million investment.
Yeah,
Okay.
any comments to that?
Yeah.
I absolutely don't disagree with that. I mean, the reason why I put in $1 million, last time we talked about this, which was a while ago, we, you know, kind of discussed the concept of doing this in bits and pieces, in chunks of money that people could kind of look at, say, okay, you're doing this, and then, okay, I'm gonna do another $1 million, and then we'll come back after that and do some more, you know, kind of building on it. So that was the only reason why I kind of proposed, you know, just $1 million now. Not that would be the ending point. That would just be the next grouping that we present to the board, and say, okay, here's our next step. But I definitely agree also with the point, you've got $1.9 million that's already kind of laddered out for you a little bit. So, you know, if you need it, any of those CDs, when they mature, can be redeemed and used. Like, you know, December 12th, January 19, and you got 3 for June, you know, so continuing to ladder it, obviously keep building on and keep, you know, the idea is to keep creating the most flexibility that we can while also getting the best rate.
Yeah, because the interest rates are only going to be going up.
Yeah.
Short term.
Right.
Yeah, because the cash flow that gets us down to $1,146,000 doesn't even take into account the redemption of a lot of those CDs.
Oh, yeah.
Do your reports
Yeah,
first.
it seems reinvesting those CDs.
That'll be another $250,000, $100,000.
Yeah. You assume that those would all be reinvested effectively. Yeah.
And you know, kind of, and again, you know, not to restrict anything with this $1 million, I didn't know what the, you know, how the board would, you know, look at a proposal to just, you know, drop another, you know, $1.5 million, $2 million right away in investments. I didn't want to, you know, scare anybody or, you know, be too dramatic with it. So that's kind of why I said, okay, here's $1 million, we're gonna do this, and then we'll be able to see it on the balance sheet and then come back, you know, come back with being another month. But, you know, that was kind of the approach, and the approach can change depending upon, you know, the feedback from you and everybody else.
Stephen, this is Ron again. How would you propose on the 4 purchases of 250,000 each? How would you propose investing that in 12-month bonds, 18-month bonds, 2-year bonds? Which
Yeah,
you?
I certainly wouldn't recommend going too far right now with the rates going up. You know, we've seen that in the other communities where, you know, they went 2 and 3 years out back when the rates were so low, and now they're wondering why, you know, why we only get 0.50 when everybody else is getting, you know, closer to 2. So, you know, I think with this grouping, we could space it out between 12 and 18 months to get some good rates, but also allow us, you know, not to lock it in so much so that we have it, you know, a significant interest rate risk moving forward.
Okay.
The thing, as I mentioned to you, Stephen, in one email, and I just mentioned here, is is if we do something on the structures in the preserve, the bridges and the boardwalk. I guess I'd like to ask Scott or Chris to tell us where you might stand. Are we still getting bids in to do that work, or are we pretty well settled as to what?
We're still getting bids in.
You wanna?
We have 2 bids, we're still trying to get a 3rd bid in.
Okay.
What they're telling us, the second vendor has informed us that the boardwalk doesn't need replacement. Repairs, maintenance, the bridges are still good also. They need some repairs, but he did give us an estimate on replacing them, so we could do them all at once or do 3 of them over a 3-year period. So the other vendor just gave us a flat cost of replacing everything. But they have separated it for us.
Scott, did they give you 2 separate amounts for like replacing with wood and then with the non-wood products?
Yes,
And are we still in the $500,000 or $600,000 range?
no, the second bid wasn't that high.
Wasn't that high?
No.
But they were only going to repair, not replace.
Well, they only were replacing the 3 bridges
Mhm.
and not the boardwalk. The
Mhm.
boardwalk was the big ticket item.
Mhm.
That was $300,000 itself, so,
With track wood. right?
yes.
And that includes the boardwalk plus the railings along the side?
Correct.
Because some of those railings are in really bad shape.
But then the other company just recommended repairs and maintenance on those.
Then we're still stuck with the same wood that's gonna keep going bad.
Well, it's a decision we'll make.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we, then, I guess we want to think about leaving ourselves the flexibility of being able to do that work, depending upon what we decide ultimately is the way to go, to have at least enough cash around to take care of that. On the other hand, it seems to me that if I look at, we've got, CDs coming due in December, that will give us sufficient to cover those things. So,
Between now and January, it's about
Right.
$1 million, if you look at the whole column.
yeah, right.
So,
Um,
we're good.
So, are people comfortable with $1 million? I'm certainly very comfortable. with
I am
$1 million.
I am.
Yeah. So, that being said, we have
Make a motion and we go forward with Stephen's proposal to the board to invest an additional $1 million.
okay,
I'll second that.
I'll second that.
Nancy
And-
should, because she's our finance person.
I think it's easy.
And we will leave it to you, Stephen, to come up with a laddering plan,
That's right.
a laddering plan for that $1 million.
Do we need to?
Okay.
Do we need to talk about the length of time we want him to invest them for? If we think
He
we're
just
gonna-
suggested 12 to 18.
12 to
months.
I know,
18,
but-
12 to
but
18.
then with Phil's additional comment about making sure we have funding for the bridges, maybe we should
But that-
stick
that's
to the
what-
lower
that's what
end.
Is that based on this?
Yeah.
The existing ones, there's plenty of money coming due
Yeah.
between now and January that if
Yeah.
we decide to do big,
Yeah.
we've got enough cash to do that.
I think so, and in actuality, we would even have enough cash, to do it even before January,
If we needed to.
if we needed to. I
You want
mean,
to split the difference and do 2 of them 18 months, 2 at 12 months?
Well,
Let Stephen figure that out.
Give the flexibility of the
Yeah.
best deal.
I passed the buck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Then we can blame him if he screws it up.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Steve, that passes 7 to 0 here. Stephen, you will bring that to the board as well?
Yep.
In other words, both this change in the reserves and also the investment of another $1 million in CDs?
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay,
Good.
we thank you very much for your assistance. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
sounds good. Let me know if you need anything else.
Thanks, Stephen.
Okay, take care.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Nancy, anything more on financials from you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Scott and I are working on a couple of smaller issues that I think we'll be able to get resolved. And, you had asked me to write that letter, and I probably got a draft I could send out to everybody this week.
Okay.
I just got so far behind this past couple weeks, I've been more focused on the things Scott and I have been working on.
Before we, drive Nancy to do something that the board doesn't think is worthwhile, you may recall that, I think it was my idea, and we did it last year, was to send out a letter to the community explaining where we stand and why their assessments are going up by, 8 or 9%, which is a considerable whack, particularly compared to what we've done in the last 2 years. And I thought it was worthwhile that we should have some kind of communication to the community.
Absolutely, we've always done it, we should do it.
Okay, so Nancy, if you would
Okay.
move forward and hopefully have something to the committee so that a
Okay.
draft that people could review and that we could approve at the next meeting.
Okay, and I'll send it out before then to everybody.
Yeah.
You did send one out in August, I think. that
Well,
pretty much-
it wasn't really a letter, though, it was
It was just an email.
just an email, and it was a kind of a shortened response. It was not the kind of detail.
Have you had a lot of feedback, Nick, from the community about the tax?
Has anybody got that?
No, and,
No.
Because they haven't seen their bill yet, the actual bill.
well, no, but they know,
They've seen
they
the-
know what it's going up.
Yeah, the envelope came in.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But the
payment.
November real estate tax bill hasn't shown up yet.
They were advised by the CDD of what the.
Well,
What it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And-
Oh, because we could hold a meeting, we could hold a public meeting to defend the decisions and why we're doing it if we need it.
Well,
That's appropriate.
I guess what I thought was, what you sent out, Phil, filled the bill for what we were gonna do. And if we haven't had any negative feedback, then I don't know if we want to stir the pot again.
Because the one that went out in August said it was going up by the $96,
Right.
which was exactly what it went up by. And you're right, I haven't had any feedback, no questions from anybody in my neighborhood.
I haven't either, but I've heard the candidates saying that Gateway's going up double digits. They won't say how much money it is, because it's not that much money.
Yeah.
But it's double digits.
Yes.
Well,
Percent.
listening to those candidates last night, when he said there was like $8 million available, that's our money.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, when you go across the balance sheet here,
Yep.
and
Speak
it
is
shows the
for
general
John.
fund, Stony Brook, they're adding in our money into their total pot.
Yeah.
Which they can't.
Which they can.
Well, my concern is that if they
Politicians
get the right
lie.
people on the board, they can do what they want.
A politician was caught lying.
Well, hard to believe. isn't it?
Hard to
Well, and that's the reason I asked the question, do people still think we should do this? That we should send out an explanation?
My gut feeling is yes. And
I
we've
agree
also
with that.
questions.
I think it's incumbent upon us to do
Yeah.
it.
Be transparent.
You can't over-communicate.
Be transparent.
Yeah. I mean,
You don't wanna confuse them.
No.
If you lay out the facts.
Yeah,
I think
and,
that'll be fine.
and the other thing this does, and I don't know whether, but if Nancy uses last year's letter as a template,
Mhm.
the opening paragraph of that letter gave an explanation, and I think we can never do this too much, as to what the CDB is, and what PPAC is, and to
Absolutely.
give people in the community a feel for what the governmental entities are here that they're dealing with. I think we can't do that too often, because the level, frankly, of ignorance about that is very, very high. And so I think any time we can communicate that kind of stuff it's very worthwhile.
Yeah, particularly, we got all these new neighborhoods, Prairie, Casella, and Pistoia. There's a lot of people living there.
Exactly.
They don't know this.
And do you want to start out with the big paragraph about what we do?
I think so.
Or do you want to start out with the dollar amount and where it's going, and then?
Whatever, well, why don't you,
Lay it out, we
Lay it
can
out.
switch
Or we
around.
can switch the paragraphs
Yeah,
out, whichever way
yeah,
you want.
yeah, okay.
Because in looking at your last year one,
Yeah.
your first paragraph pretty much said everything you want to say about
I
that.
agree, I think you could almost copy it.
Yeah, I think so too.
This
Yeah.
one hasn't changed.
Yeah.
In fact, the first two paragraphs, almost
Mhm.
word for word, and then go into the specifics about this year,
Yeah.
which is pretty simple, really. I mean,
I
We got a
agree.
lot of stuff got transferred.
we got a lot of stuff transferred to us, and
Neighborhoods
we have to pay
that's
for it.
basically what cost.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the one thing I wanna make sure they understand is it is only Pelican assets, because after listening to the candidate forum last night,
Yeah.
I wanna
Well-
make sure that they know that all
Oh,
these
oh.
assets that we're paying for are within our community.
Pelican.
Yes,
Not-
yes, I think so, and
Gateway as a
obviously,
whole.
particularly Jim Brand's comments at that meeting last night
Yes.
were, I'm sure, very confusing to some of the people there, because he was talking about basically non-Pelican stuff in Gateway.
Right.
Yes.
And so I think that was probably a little bit confusing.
Until it came time to fund.
Yeah.
And he was very clear he wanted us to fund.
Yeah.
I
Well,
was-
and that's, without getting into politics,
Yeah.
that's the danger here. That he may think he can take our reserve money and apply it to gateway
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
As opposed to it's our money, we paid for it, and it should be allocated for.
And the only other
our
comment in the
assets.
letter, we ought to make sure that the residents realize we will not have any more assets transferred. This doesn't. All the neighborhoods are now under us.
Is everything's transferred, even
All-
all the reserves that we're gonna, preserves that
Yes,
we're
all
going
of
to
it, we
get?
got, all of it's in this budget now, and we control it. It'll
Because-
never go in.
Because from what I understood this morning, the preserve has not been transferred to us yet.
Which preserve?
The
Well,
major
boardwalks.
preserves.
Yeah.
Then why are we paying for the bridges?
That's a separate discussion, and that's a political discussion. Right now, all the reserves are ours. Leave it at that,
Okay.
Including that preserve.
including.
Okay, then I misspoke this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all ours.
Okay.
Well, I was very surprised that two of the candidates thought they'd be willing for us to leave the CDD, which is almost impossible.
Well,
But they both
so
said.
it's easy to say they support it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's
Well, I support it
impossible,
too,
then-
it's just that there's no way to do it.
Well, you gotta have the
It's
state
not-
legislature.
Well, it's not
Impossible.
impossible.
Not
Actually,
impossible.
I think in 2025 is the end where you could pull out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've got some documents, I'll share them with you, but I think they
Okay.
mentioned in 2025, that would be when the.
It wouldn't be an economically sound decision.
Well, that's another issue.
For the
That's
residents.
another issue. Okay. All right, we're finished with the investment model. Okay, now we get into, Scott, you're on.
Can we go
I'm
back to
sorry.
Nancy's finances?
Yes. Sorry.
Do you need a motion, to do that 140,000 or whatever?
That's a good question. Scott, how do we get the money to you? Do we need to do the motion to pay the $142,000?
I don't think so. I mean, we're paying invoices for stuff that we, you know, for
See,
work.
the bills have been paid.
the invoice now,
Yeah.
transferring
You
money.
just have
It's
to-
on the book. It's expensive.
Not a new expense.
No, it's not a new
No, it's
expense.
just a replenishment of the
Right,
fund.
we haven't incurred. any
Replenishment
new
fund has been
expenses.
approved.
Peter's paying Paul.
I don't
You're
think so.
paying
Well, it's
Peter.
not even-
Yeah.
No,
Peter-
Peter-
Peter's
Peter's
paying
paying
Peter.
Peter.
It's just, it's more of a
Okay.
book accounting thing, other than the.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to force a question. Anything, any other questions for Nancy Olson? Okay, let's move on to Scott, you're up.
All right, I have Jason Turner here from Securitas, so if you don't mind, I'd like him to go first,
Okay.
so I know he has another meeting to get to.
Fine.
Good afternoon. So last time that we.
Jason, if you
Yes.
would just introduce yourself into the microphones for the minute takers, that would be good.
Jason Turner from Securitas Security
Thank you.
Services. Not last month, you saw Bob
Excuse me,
French.
this is John Gregg. I'm having difficulty hearing him. Is he speaking into is his mic on for conference?
I guess it's not.
It's
Is it
not,
a button?
Is the button on top? Button like we do?
no, it's better.
Okay, how's that?
John, any better?
It's not.
Did he talk yet?
Yeah.
Meeting's over.
Try it again, Jason.
Could you hear me?
Okay, yes.
Okay. So last month, when you had the meeting, Bob French was here, and he had talked about a couple items that he was preparing. One is a proposal for technology and cameras. Another one was based on post orders. So an update on those two subjects. One, the post orders. I know some time ago, PPAC had looked at the post orders and worked very hard to get what we currently have in place. Securitas likes to review those every year to see what kind of new things have come about that we need to address and enhance our services. Securitas wants to go through those post orders again to look at what we have, what we need to add, what we need to take out. What we're asking is, once we do that, if PPAC would like to take a look at our final product, or do you want to push that off to another entity, maybe the Safety and Security Committee?
No, I would ask that Ron, who has worked on this before, that once you've done your work, or that he work with you to the extent necessary, and then he bring that forward to the committee.
Okay,
So.
so we'll make that,
Ron
put that in
is
order.
very conversant with post-order stuff.
Okay, great.
So.
So we'll do that, we'll get together and we'll look at that. For the last 2 months, we've had a new supervisor put in place for security. I think he's doing an excellent job. His name is Cristobal Lopez. You've probably seen some enhancement in security itself. I think everything is going well with what we're putting in place with upgrade officers, better quality officers right now. And then as far as the technology portion of it, we've been working in partnership with Council Group to get a proposal to them with the camera systems, upgrading or replacing certain cameras. And we did an assessment of our current camera project, or equipment that are in place, and we've gone ahead and made some improvements, including replacing an NVR for the camera system, so we get a better hold on the data that comes through. That's
I
basically
guess,
what
Scott,
we have.
you're gonna present the specifics
Yes.
of this.
Can I just say, I know I brought this up this morning.
Right.
But there is still concern about the personnel not doing what we expect them to do with the issue that we talked about this morning with the berries and stuff.
Right.
That those kind of issues have to be resolved. These are supposedly our new, better personnel.
Well, not everybody's been replaced, and we constantly evaluate our staff. They all get training, they all get directives, they all get the post orders. They get everything that they need to do their job. And what we hope is that they do their job. Once we get the certain situations, such as the berry pickers, we evaluate what's going on, and if we need to replace those officers or they need remedial training, we put that in order. It's always a work in progress when it comes to service in anything. It's not just security. So when we hear these things, we look at it very closely and we make a decision. But we don't know about it until we hear about it.
Well, if you just want anecdotal information, if you get on Nextdoor Pelican, which is a public forum, there has been a whole lot of things in the last month or so written about our security in Pelican Preserve that you might want to take a look at.
Yeah, I'm aware
Things
of it.
about people, one person wrote that the security car went up and down her street for so long, she went out and stopped him to ask if there was something wrong, and he just looked at her like he didn't even understand what she was saying. So if you go online and look at some of those comments, at least you'll know what kind of issues people within the community are having, what their concerns are.
Yeah, I'm aware of it, and we look at those as well, and it's not an isolated thing to Securitas. I came from Allied Universal, and this happened in those web portal type of communication. You're gonna have fans and you're gonna have people that do not like security for one reason or another. And same thing with landscaping, same thing with FP&O. I mean, it happens. When I was a cop for 20 years, we had the same thing about the police department. I mean, it's just one of those things, you either have supporters or you don't. But every time that we get something that comes through and we evaluate it, we do make changes, like I said, whether it's a remedial training or it's a replacement of that officer to get a quality. And we're constantly looking at what the staff is.
Jason, can I make one comment? And I heard it this morning, I've heard it a few times, but it happened to me the other day. I had my car serviced and the car dealership gave me a ride home. And when we got to the gate, I gave the guy my best smile, said, I live here, and he's just dropping me off. Thank you, bye. And I told the fellow driving me, I said, he should have asked me for my driver's license.
Correct.
Because anybody could have come in, but I heard that several times this morning. So I think, I know you're gonna go over post orders, but one of the things I think that could be done immediately is to just enforce with your staff there that if somebody's coming in a car and somebody says, I live here, they should still request a driver's license. I actually had it out ready to give them so I wouldn't stop anybody, and we just got right through. I guess my smile's pretty good, but.
You're correct, and I've reiterated to our supervisor that everybody that comes through the visitor's lane needs to have a driver's license. And that goes for Scott himself, Christopher, the board president, anybody. It's just a perception from somebody who's behind the car that's not being ID'd, is that we don't ID anybody. Unfortunately, it happened to you, and I apologize for that. But I can tell you, on the other end, I've had residents come up and say, you know what? The officers are too strict, because I had vendors that wanted to come in and they were ID'd and they weren't on the list or what, and they had to be turned around. So it does go on both sides of it. The main thing that we look at is consistency, that everybody is ID'd and they get treated the same exact way. Different scenarios.
Residents need to, I guess, understand also that it's a big help if the guards are notified that somebody's coming in to see them. And I don't know, maybe that's something Carol can put in one of her.
Well, I think council management has sent out a
Council
number of
management's
reminders.
responsible for that.
Yeah, we've sent a number of reminders in our weekly email to the community, advising them of how they can enter the guests, why they ought to do it. We're more than happy to help any residents in the office if they have questions about how to do so. And we've continued to communicate with Securitas about what are some other ways that we can assist with communicating and educating our membership so that everybody knows what they have to do.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Jason? Okay, Jason, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Hope you make it easy. Scott, you back up.
No, I'm not. I have Chris. Chris is gonna give an update on a post order and a security procedure that we're using for Home Watch.
Chris Santos, Council Management, and yes, as to follow up, with our discussions with Jason Turner and Bob French with Securitas, one of the items which we've discussed regarding the post orders updates concern Home Watch. Since we have had some new staffing in place, I can tell you I've heard from a number of Home Watch companies. Frank Robers is one gentleman who has a Home Watch company. We have a number of residents who utilize the Home Watch companies, and one difficulty that's we seem to be having at this point is those residents who contract the Home Watch services, they do rely on those services to sometimes call in vendors. If these are residents who are out of state, they have service providers, which for a number of years, I understand, the Home Watch representatives have been able to authorize those guests on their behalf. As we are cracking down and making sure that the attendants are properly only allowing in those vendors and service providers who have been authorized, we want to make sure that there is a way that is going to allow for these service providers to be authorized. And the feedback that we're getting from the residents and some of the Home Watch providers is there a way that we can, again, in the post orders, incorporate that the service providers, that the Home Watch services can call those guests in. I discussed this with Jason and Bob, Scott and myself, and with the Dwelling Live service, this does allow for, and that is what we are currently using in the community, it does allow for the residents to call in permanent guests, temporary guests, enter them in through the service. It seems like the simplest way to move forward would be to allow the guests, the resident rather, to enter the Home Watch service that they contract one time as a permanent guest. And that would suffice to allow that Home Watch representatives to then call in service providers. Prior to actually enacting and placing that in the post orders, we wanted to present that to PPAC for your thoughts and consideration.
How would making them a permanent guest give them authority to bring in other guests?
Right now, we're really just looking for a way to allow them to do that. By doing this, we would essentially be saying that that is the process, by the resident taking the time to enter their Home Watch service as a permanent guest, that in itself would be the authorization for that home watch provider to then call in other service providers. It would also be the homeowner's responsibility that if they were to cancel the services they have at that home watch, that they go into their profile and update it accordingly, that that home watch is no longer listed as a permanent guest.
This doesn't mean that every permanent guest can call people.
Well, I
That-
mean,
that's
that's
my
the
next
implication.
question.
That's the
Well, but the,
implication.
but, no.
This would be, by adding it into the post orders, it would be the specific direction to the gate attendants that this is a specific case where only those home watch representatives would be able to have that authority.
Do we register home watch companies within Pelican?
I don't understand the question.
I have a neighbor who has a home watch service, and I've volunteered to watch some houses over top of the home watch companies. But my question is, my neighbor having a home watch company, if he was to register with you that he is a home watch, an officially designated home watch company, and he has X number of customers within Pelican Preserve, you could then have a list that he's responsible for these number of houses. And if there's an emergency, and in fact I did have one, the person had a water leak. The home watch guy couldn't figure out that he had a water leak, and I went down and determined that, and then we were able to get a plumber right away to come in and actually fix a cracked pipe. And I didn't contact the plumber, I had the home watch person, he was getting paid to do it. But if we registered the home watch person and had a list of people that they're responsible for, then perhaps you could give, or request those homeowners to give that home watch person the authority to bring people in, because there are emergencies like a broken pipe.
Well, that's what they're
But
doing.
that's what we're doing. Proposal is,
Yeah,
Bill?
and yeah, I understand.
That's the whole proposal.
So,
Yes.
you know, I think having a mechanism where these people have the authority to bring someone in to do services is a great idea.
But it shouldn't come from council, it's gotta come from the owner.
Yeah.
Well, it
So
should
let
come
me-
from the homeowner or from the designated home watch person given the authority to call.
But the homeowner tells them who his home watch person is.
Correct. Yeah.
So, how would it actually work? I have a gentleman who watches our house from time to time. And he doesn't have a separate company for home watch, he's, you know, a guy who lives in the neighborhood. So I'd say, okay, Mike, I'm gonna put you in as a permanent guest. Now, how does that tell the gate that
No,
that guy is now
That should
representing
change.
himself?
If he's a resident, he just does it.
You don't
Yeah.
have to.
Well, and again, we've got a difference between the permanent guest where perhaps if that individual was coming to the property to check on your home, to check on your unit, and then there's the difference between him being able to call in a service provider to visit your address.
Yeah.
That is separate.
But-
As it currently stands, Castle Management, we do not have any registration as to what home watch services, you know, watch which homes. It's been up to the unit owner to go into their dwelling life guest list and say, I've got Pelican Home Watch Services or whatever company it may be. And then if one of their representatives comes by the gate to come and visit the property, they would be permitted access.
I think we're trying to make this harder than it has to be.
But this
If
would
it's a
all-
neighbor taking care of a neighbor's home, excuse me, there's
Yeah,
no
but-
harm, no foul, the
But
neighbor
it's
lets
not always
anybody
a
in.
neighbor, there's actually
Right.
some companies that are
But we're
starting
talking
influence.
about,
Yeah.
Joe, we just
Yeah.
specifically talked
Yeah.
about that. If it's a resident calling somebody in, they don't need to be involved.
So
Correct.
this would only apply if it's a home watch who doesn't,
No.
he doesn't live in Pelican.
Right.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
if-
a non-resident.
if somebody in Colonial has a home watch company and they're coming into Pelican, they need something.
And a
Or my
resident-
neighbor, who has a home watch company and does 50
Absolutely.
homes in Pelican, he can already let people in. Even if he uses his own account, he can still get people in.
This is specific to non-resident home watching.
That is correct.
Okay.
So again, when we do have a service provider that comes in the community, when they approach the gate, they're going to speak with the attendant and say, I am John Smith, I'm coming to go to this specific property, and that's where the gate attendant is going to enter them in. So we could say at 9 o'clock, this person came into this address. Whenever the home watch representative is looking to call someone on somebody else's behalf, this is what we were trying to address at this point. As
And if that home watch company is on the dwelling line for Ron DePonte, then you accept it, just as though it's found.
That is correct. That is what we are aiming to do.
So if I'm John Home Watch Incorporated, and I'm a permanent guest on his list, I
On my
call
dwelling
to
lot.
say, because I don't have access to Dwelling Live, I'm not a resident. I call the gatehouse and say, you know, Home Tech is coming into his address, okay, and I'm such and such home watch guy.
Mhm.
They'll look it up, is that the point, that they would then look it up?
That's exactly correct. They
and
would
the
look up
entry
his
would have
account, and they
indicated
would
that
see that he had listed you as a permanent
Home
guest.
watch.
And
Look
per
up
the
the
post
file.
orders update, that would
Okay.
be sufficient
Gotcha.
authorization for you to call that guest.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
I think that works.
that makes sense.
I think that works.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a way to do it.
Good plan.
Yeah,
Yes.
but it would be just for external home watch services. People-
That is correct.
Now, a guy like Frank Robers, who lives here,
Well, I suppose I stand corrected in that case.
Yeah.
He would, his company, for example,
Yeah.
if somebody had listed him as their home watch, he would be able, and this is what we want to do, because then it's gonna be listed under the correct address as to where that service provider is heading.
Yeah.
Mr. Rovers could, as a resident, say, oh, let's say they're going to my address,
Yeah.
and just tell the vendor to go where they're really
Right.
going. We wanna shy away from that.
I think.
So I think the point is, anybody who's using anybody as a home watch
Mhm.
should have that person listed
Right.
as a permanent
Permanent guest.
guest,
Right, exactly.
and then they're
That goes
allowed
back
to do
to
what
my
you're talking about.
registration.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Or even if it's not permanent guest, maybe a category, home watch.
Yeah, well,
Some people use it, some don't.
Yeah, so as it currently stands, the dwelling line system allows for permanent guests, temporary guests. We would say put it in the permanent guest
Absolutely.
until such time that they no longer have the services.
Somebody's taking
And it
them
would be
out.
the owner's responsibility to take them out.
right, okay. Everybody all right with that?
So,
Absolutely.
you
We need
need,
to
you
make
looking
a
for our
motion.
approval to start doing that right now? Is that what?
That would be preferable. I think it would address a lot of the current concerns we have with the current system.
Wait for the chairman
Yeah.
to say.
Can I hear a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded that we use the system of home watch services being put in as permanent guests. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, 7-0, you got it.
I'm back.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. Nancy, on that replenishment of the retainer fund, we're just gonna have to discuss how we wanna process the paperwork, so Severn Trent transfers the money over.
I guess you could just do a funding request to me like we normally do, and then I
But
could
just attach that.
just attach this, and then I'll just prove it for payment.
All right,
Okay.
I'll do that. Okay, first order of business is this addendum that I handed out to everyone.
Except for John.
Yes, this addendum was emergency request for the NVR, which is the main component of the camera system, so we could actually use the cameras and record what was going on at the guard gate. So this is a lease for 36 months, and we just need you to approve that.
As you see from the addendum, I gave it temporary approval because we needed to get those cameras working. And so I gave it advance approval.
So I guess we need to approve this one.
Oh, either that or I get arrested.
Or we take the NVR out and we don't have cameras.
All right.
Burdens of office.
We approve this.
Okay, Nancy moves that we approve the
I'll second.
agreement for the NVR. Bob seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you got me off the. got me
I
off the
wasn't
hook.
totally comfortable
7
when
to
this
0.
issue came up. That we really had a handle on the fact that the camera system wasn't working at the time we needed it.
Yes.
Wasn't real comfortable. I'd much rather have heard that the camera's down 2 weeks before the guy decided to drive his car
Yeah.
in the preserve. If we
Well,
called
the
to put
the
our
preserve,
system-
you know, that's an entirely different problem, but you're right. You know, if we would have done the assessment sooner, we would have known the problem with the cameras.
And then we'd have known what car it was that drove through our community.
Possibly.
We'd had a license on it. You put the
Well,
time of the day and the make and
But they
model.
went back into the community, so we don't know where he came from, or if he went into a garage. So
So
we
we
do
could-
assume a lot, but yeah, we can assume the worst, that he did drive in through the front gate, and he did a joyride around, but
You could've been
boy,
arrested.
driving over those bridges in a car,
I choose to believe it wasn't arrested. I don't think the old folks are that ballsy.
I don't know.
Well, I found out today they're stealing flags, so. I
Oh,
mean-
we'll steal it.
Oh, yeah.
Drive a car with
Yeah.
it.
They stole rocks from the butterfly garden. We had done some nice little rocks out
We did that.
in the
Yeah.
area.
Oh, yeah,
They took them.
they steal rocks that we
They
put
stole the
up,
signs.
signs,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Towels and the picture
Casitas.
center.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't drive over the bridge from
No,
on a dare?
That's a lie, they wouldn't go over.
Okay,
Okay,
I believe you.
all right.
All right, the next item is Ameriscape month-to-month proposal for the Prado Drive, the remaining section of Prado Drive. The district used to pay for this through Juniper. Well, now it's coming through us. This is the last section that has not been conveyed. And it's this small little section of Prado. So this is just a temporary until it is conveyed, and then we'll roll it into our new master agreement.
You say it has not been conveyed.
Well,
But yet we're gonna start paying for it?
It's in the process. Well,
it has been conveyed, hasn't it?
has this been conveyed yet, Chris? I haven't gotten anything on it. It has?
Well, this is Matarita Phase 4 is, I believe, what it's.
Matarita Phase 4 is the only one that hasn't been
Because
conveyed.
they still had a couple open issues over there.
Okay, so if it's not conveyed,
Why are we
Why are
paying
we
for
paying?
anything?
Is this part of that?
Well, actually, this came from me from Chris, because Juniper was servicing it, and then they stopped servicing it.
They should-
So if we're going to have it even service, we need to do something with this.
So who was paying for it when it was Juniper?
It went right through,
Lennar, I assume. I mean,
well,
Juniper is a.
who had the contract, Chris?
Juniper is a vendor to Lennar, not to us.
Juniper is Lennar.
Lennar, okay.
Yeah, Juniper is a
But if it
Lennar
hasn't been
thing.
conveyed, why would we start picking up the
Paying
bill?
it, yeah.
So why would we start paying it if it hasn't been conveyed?
Well,
Yeah.
let's go back to Chris, let's make sure that his statement that it hasn't been conveyed includes this little section here.
Yeah, the Matarita 4, and I can look at the map, the Matarita 4 is the one outstanding.
There is one that is outstanding.
But
It's a
is that-
technical, I don't know if that's it.
Well, that's the question.
The main question is, Lennar stopped paying, do we want to
Well,
pick it up or not? That's the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, well,
At $2,000 a month?
I'll go back to Lennar.
yeah, yeah.
That one's done.
Dave
Thank you.
Caldwell was his guy.
That says Prado.
It was
No,
proud of
it
it.
says-
It's-
Well, it's the road
Prado
named
conveyed.
Prado.
It's Prado Drive common area.
Yeah, yeah.
The location
But it's
is
really
Matarita,
Matarita.
but it's
Well,
still
if-
Prado
If you look
Drive.
at the map, that's Matarita that it's showing.
This is specifically where Cypress Grove becomes Prado Drive, in between that and Migliero Way, the entrance to Matarita 2.
Okay.
Scott, when you talk with them, would you tell them there's a lot of trees that are blown over, dead, and shrubs that are dead in there?
Yes,
Sure.
I'll let them know.
That's a nightmare, I mean, it's
But
Prado Drive.
a lot of that's in our Ameriscape area,
Yeah.
because those trees are like past Nigliera mostly, and that's already ours.
Mhm.
So Ameriscape should be taking care of those, but you're right, they're tipped over and need to be,
Yeah, that one section's.
And
pretty
of course,
bad.
we got stuck with that by the board.
As we typically do.
Yeah.
And along with Cypress Grove.
Yeah.
So, All right, the next one is the Prado and Pistoia Monument light signs replacements.
There's 3 options.
We have a couple of options that West Coast Electrical gave us. The one is the replacement of the identical fixture. They figured that, well, maybe we ought to look at a less expensive fixture. I believe that would be changing, the community. So I would recommend that we stay with the current option 1 fixture that we have throughout the rest of Pelican Preserve.
Scott, I guess my question on this one is, how do these things get damaged?
We do not know. We know that it's partially rust, it's wiring, it could be somebody stepping on them, driving over them. I would venture to say it was somebody stepping on them or somebody drove over them, because the way they're broken.
Because it looks like it's the monument or the attachments that are broken.
Yeah. But those are aluminum, so they can be welded or fixed, so.
Mr. Schumacher, is this still under warranty period?
We could try, you know, when something's damaged like that, I don't know if they.
Well, we'll
want it
just,
damaged.
we could choose to call it damage, or we could choose to say it's not functioning within 1 year warranty. Let them figure out it's damaged.
We could certainly.
This ought to go to
ask.
Lennar.
Hmm?
This should go to Lennar.
Is that how it would work? We don't have to pay it first?
Well, typically, a warranty is something that is defective, not run over or.
Well, we don't, all we know is it doesn't work.
Put it in there, and they'll look and say,
Got nothing to lose but try.
So,
Let Lennar see if, at least ask them if they'll restore it. If they won't, then give them the authority to get it fixed.
what, and so the three, these are the $1,650 options, is that right?
Yeah, this looks like there's three of the same thing again.
Yeah, and those are the
Option
1,600.
one, option two.
Option 2 is the same light, it's fluorescent.
Yeah.
Option 1 is the new LED fixtures. I would go with option 2, it's gonna produce the same lighting as the rest of the monuments.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know what the payback would be on the LED.
I don't think it'd be enough to
$450.
justify that much difference in price.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we're talking about $5,000, $49.50 to be correct.
I'm sorry, where are you?
Are
Well,
you?
I see 1650.
16.3 and 16.50. Or maybe my multiplication is wrong.
Oh, I see what you're looking at.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm looking at
I
3
didn't
and
realize that
3 and
16.50 was the each.
16.50, I got 49.50
per light
is what I
fixture,
got.
16.50
Make me a
cents?
liar for 50
Well,
bucks.
because option 1 says furnish and install 3. Is this for each or is this for all 3?
That's all 3.
Yeah, it's all 3.
Yeah,
So option 2 is $1,650
So all 3.
for all 3.
oh, for all 3, I'm
Okay.
sorry, okay, okay. 16.50 for all 3, okay,
That's better.
that's much better.
Well, in that case, if that's for all three, is the LED more attractive?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether the payback, you know, since we're only talking about a $400 difference.
And if we're eventually gonna head at the LED direction.
Exactly.
But are you gonna do the rest of the monuments?
And once you open
anytime
that
soon?
door, everybody's gonna want it if they like it.
It's gonna shine a different light.
Is
It's
it?
gonna be whiter, yeah.
But who's going
Most of
I
the
mean, we're
people
not
won't
gonna-
be
we're not-
driving down
no.
there. Most of the people won't be driving back.
To
there
begin
even
with,
notice
and
it.
secondly, we won't do it unless there's a
Unless the
need
old
to
one goes
replace,
out.
until theirs goes out.
Well, nothing could make somebody break it faster than that.
Well, I have a question. As they need to be replaced, let's say the one on Bellagio needs to be replaced. Is it just a simple matter of putting the new bulb in if it's LED, or do you have to put all the
You have to
fixtures
replace the
in?
fixture.
So every time we replace it, we'd be incurring more than just a bulb.
Unless they
Every time
can
we
replace the
the
ballast,
existing.
Right.
yes,
Right.
yes.
So it wouldn't be just a simple.
No, you're not replacing a bulb. No.
You know, when I look at this picture, the way that's broken, and I see grass on one side and mulch on the other side, I wonder, I don't wanna infer the wrong message, but just maintenance, cutting the grass, that could get bumped and broken.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Driver, walked on, yeah, definitely.
I think less walked on, but golf cart even that's somewhat out of control can do that, so. But can we put some kind of
Somebody
stakes in
mowing
front of
the lawn
that to
could do it.
prevent that? Is there, if it's just aluminum, it's a weak
I don't
point
know.
to begin with. Can it be protected?
I don't see how you're gonna put anything in there that's gonna
We're
protect
gonna
it
steal
and make
some
it
rocks
look
from
good.
the butterfly garden. and put them in
Steal
there.
some rocks. Well, somebody will steal them from there too.
Okay.
I don't know, this is the first time this has happened. If
Yeah.
this became a problem, I'd say, let's look at a different fixture.
I'm on board
or,
with that.
You know, but
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd
We're
go
already
for, I'd go
there.
for the LED and look for the long-term savings if it's gonna stay, but if it gets broken continuously, then there's no point spending the money.
And any chance it could be construction traffic too, because
Oh,
that,
it, definitely.
there's so much construction traffic in that turnaround.
I wouldn't recommend spending any more than what we really need to spend at this time
And
because
that's
of
why we should
all
go
the
back to
traffic.
Lennar and let them replace it.
Yeah.
It's in the warranty period, as far as we know, it's their construction.
Very well could be the construction.
Yeah.
It could be.
Let them prove it.
Yeah, okay. So we're gonna, Scott, would you work with, Chris to have him go back to Lennar?
Yes.
For this, okay? And then you can bring it back if you want to do it.
All right.
On to the next.
On to the next, you all received the Securitas package. It was a colored package, listed.
Not color anymore.
Well, not colored anymore, I'm sorry, but gave you all the specs on the new light or the new camera system. And again, this would be a lease. It would not be a purchase. Primarily because during your lease period, it's going to be maintained, repaired by Securitas. At the end of the 36-month lease, if there hasn't been any drastic changes in the quality of cameras, they're still functioning well, we have a $1 buyout. So we could buy them at that time, but then we would have to buy a service contract so they would maintain them if there was a problem.
And how much is the monthly lease payment?
Monthly for the entire new camera system would be $804 a month.
What are we paying now?
You're not.
What were we paying, what we were paying?
Well,
You don't-
I'll have to go back and look. I don't recall what you were paying 4 years ago.
Once the lease was up, we retained the equipment and we
Yes.
used it until it quit.
We'll do that on this too.
We'll do
Yeah,
that.
and that's what we would do on this one too. We just retain it, instead of having that outlay of cash, like with the NVR, it was $139 a month or $4,000 plus another $1,500 in programming. So for $139 a month, we got the programming, we got the NVR, and the maintenance on the NVR.
So this will be an item that's not included in our budget for this year, but that we probably need to do.
Yeah, I think we need to do it.
Yeah.
I think so too. The question is for approval level, you know, we're talking about over the 3-year period of about $30,000. Does that have to go to the board?
It's 9,600 for 1 year, and that falls within Chris.
Yeah.
It's just
Like
the 1 year? So you can
Just do it year by year.
Year by
Can
year.
can I ask a question? This is
Yeah.
all through Securitas. What,